Thank you for everyone for joining us for our collective webinar, mentoring webinar series on rural mentoring, leveraging community assets, and creating a culture of mentoring. So let's get started. Even advance next. This webinar is part of the collective mentoring webinar series, which is funded by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention through the National Mentoring Resource Center and facilitated in partnership with Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership. These webinars would not be possible without the planning team, which includes the mentoring partnerships shown on this slide. In addition to this webinar series, the NMRC provides resources for mentoring practitioners. At the end of this webinar, we'll provide more details about how you can access this free support. So before we get started, I wanted to share some housekeeping information. In 1 week, you'll receive an email with information about how to download a copy of these slides and view the webinar recording. You can also access this information directly by going to Mentor's website in the next week. And to continually improve this series, we're looking for your input. A short survey will pop up as you exit the webinar. Please take 3 minutes to give us your feedback. We want this to be a participatory experience, so please use the question box to ask questions throughout the webinar. Many will be queuing up questions to share with panelists during the Q&A portion of the webinar. We may not get to all questions because there are several hundred of you on the webinar, but we will do our best. The questions that we share with our panelists are generally ones that broaden or deepen the conversation. So first, to get a sense with us, who is with us today, we have 2 short polls. So what is your experience level in the mentoring field? So please select one. We have beginner, experienced, and expert. So on our first one, we have quite a bit of experienced people in the field, in the mentoring field, and then a little beginner and a little expert. All right. So our second one is, what is your role in the mentoring field? So are you a practitioner, a researcher, technical assistance provider, funder, or other? And please select one. All right, great. So we have a lot of practitioners on the webinar with us today, and a few others, and some technical assistance providers. So welcome everyone, and thank them. Hope that today's information will be applicable to everyone on the line. All right, to make this webinar more participatory, we have another 2 introductory questions to get to the attendees today. One question, moderator Minnie Chin will pull up your responses so we can learn more about who we have with us and what we are hoping to learn today. We hope to address your questions during the Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. So what challenges do you face in your rural mentoring program? And so if attendees can type responses in the question box, we'll give you a few moments to do so. And then what is one question you have or one thing you hope to learn today?
Hi everyone, this is Minnie. So I'll be moderating the questions. So I see a bunch of responses are coming in right now. There's a few challenges with transportation, funding. I see one challenge, folks said, recruitment of mentoring, how to best support our remote mentors, more about recruitment, navigating transportation, lack of volunteers. We got a question of how do we recruit more male mentors? Yes, transportation is clearly a big issue. Some folks want to know more about funding strategies and recruitment. So thank you for all typing all of these in. Definitely a lot of the same kind of challenges that many folks are facing. So hopefully we can address those later in the Q&A. So I'm going to pass it back to Desiree, and we're going to keep going.
Thank you, Minnie. So for today's webinar, this is our outline. So we'll talk a little bit about what does mentoring in a rural community look like. 3 different programs are here to talk to us today and who are located across the country. What challenges do rural mentoring programs face? And then what are creative strategies and best practices to address and or overcome challenges? So things like engaging with your community, creating a culture of mentoring, and etc. All right, so I am your facilitator for today. I am Desiree Robertson. I'm the Director of Training and Product Design for Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership, and I'm responsible for driving and executing Mentor's vision for quality training, development, and product design, including ensuring that our products, our tools, and trainings are developed with best practices in adult learning theory and instructional and information design. So along with the great information that you'll gather from today's webinar, Mentor's network of mentoring affiliates across the country help support the work of mentoring organizations through technical assistance, training, networking, and advocacy. They can be a great resource for your rural mentoring program. For more information and to connect with a local or national affiliate, visit the website on the screen. So today we'll hear from several panelists, again, who will talk about the following questions through the lens of their work. Again, what are common challenges rural communities face, and why is mentoring in a rural setting unique, and why is mentoring important? And we have today with us Pam Quinn, Program Director for Twinfield Together Mentoring Program, Allyson Horne, Training and Match Support Coordinator for Teammates Mentoring, and Kara Johnson, Program Director for Heart of Oregon Corps YouthBuild. So let's get started. We will get started with Pam Quinn.
Hi, thanks, Desiree. My name's Pam Quinn, and I'm Program Director of Twinfield Together Mentoring Program in Marshfield and Plainfield, Vermont. We're a rural pre-K-12 school, so we have 4-year-olds all the way up to 12th graders in the same building. We have some of the same issues that was mentioned by Minnie at the beginning of the question. So one thing that we'll talk about is how we were first established in 2009. So if you want to go to the next slide, we'll talk about how we strengthen kids and community. In 2009, we established a survey to figure out what some of the challenges of our youth and our community were. This is before there was a mentoring program. And the survey determined that poverty, little or no access to after-school activities, and isolation or lack of transportation were the biggest problems. Now, it's natural in a rural community where the deficits were really apparent to focus our attention on trying to address these deficits. But I'm going to mostly focus on today is if we could shift the focus to looking at the strengths and assets, it's easier to get buy-in from youth, parents, teachers, supporters, and potential mentors and donors. Today, I'll talk about some strategies for shifting the focus in our rural communities, from deficits to strengths and assets. I know many of you are experienced, so you probably already use a lot of these strategies. So this is maybe a refresher or a reminder for many of us. Before we begin, I'll give you a brief history of our program. I'm not going to go into great detail because I know you're not here to hear about my program specifically. But here's the background. We began in 2009, 10 years ago, as a traditional community-based program. Then in 2013, we grew to include community members coming into the school to mentor, and we call that Everybody Wins Mentoring. And then in 2005, in an attempt to close the mentoring gap, we started a peer mentoring program. With 3 different programs, we had more people visibly participating. We started to focus on one of the strengths of our small rural community, which is that we're a small rural community. People know each other, and slowly people were realizing that lots of adults and kids were participating in the mentoring program, and it became more accessible to them. When we first began in 2009, we had four community-based mentors. So you can look at the website afterwards if you want to get more specifics about each of the programs, because the links will be there after the webinar. But now we'll think about the challenges in rethinking our approach, because about 5 years ago, what we decided was that we really had to look at what was working and what wasn't, because our program wasn't growing tremendously. It was clear to me that we had to start selling mentoring as a program for the whole community. And we needed to look at promoting mentoring through a strengths-based approach. This new approach meant that we had to ask lots of different people why they thought mentoring was important to them, and find out what people in our community cared about and what would make them support mentoring, by either becoming a mentor or getting them to join our advisory board or by making a donation. I noticed in this work that adults in our community cared about youth and they really wanted to help, but they weren't sure if they were capable of being mentors. Parents and kids were apprehensive about participating because they felt mentoring was for kids that were perceived as in need, and they didn't want their family to be identified as in need. So we knew if we really wanted to match all the kids that some school officials were saying really needed a mentor, we were going to have to start matching a variety of kids. Since adults are also diverse in personality, interest, and motivations to become a mentor, it was easy to make sure our matches were made on a good personality fit and not based on this perceived need. So now I'm going to just take a minute. So that's the background of where we've come in the past 5 years. But now I'm going to talk about, I tried to synthesize and come up with 3 tips that I felt that you could walk away with today. And of course, each of our communities are different, but here are some general habits that we seem to work in our community. First, we'll talk about finding the heart of our community. For us, it was our school. So we really focused on building a lot of relationships within the school. Second, we'll talk about using the people in your community to figure out where your strengths are and strategies for building on those strengths. We'll make a list of ideas together. In a small community, these relationships can really make a difference. And lastly, we'll talk about some outreach strategies. I know I heard some of you say that that's what you wanted to focus on, that have worked for us for making mentoring an integral part of our community. And so the next slide, we'll take a look at, this slide shows what we got together as my advisory board about 5 years ago, and we really started thinking, what are our strengths and our assets? And this is what we sort of decided were the strengths and assets for our particular community. And by focusing on the strengths and assets of your community, you will be building relationships with families, potential mentors, and potential donors. Thinking about strengths and assets can be challenging when we are all faced with the daily tasks of running a small mentoring program. I know that. So what I realized worked for me was that I couldn't just sit there by myself and think on my own in isolation. So my advice is to not do this in isolation, to really find people that can collaborate with you in your community, especially people that know the community well. And of course, trying to get people from different aspects of your community to weigh in is always helpful. By including a cross-section of youth and adults, I think that you'll have a better likelihood of covering all your bases. For me, it was my advisory board that helped me look at our community as a whole. I was new to the job 5 years ago, and I was talking with people who knew the community well and who might be about who would be a good mentor was really helpful. By building relationships I realized I should build a relationship with the librarian or these parents or these specific teachers, or really getting to know the school nurse was really important for me because she really knew all the families and everything that was going on. So I really started relying on the PE teacher. Actually, was also a one that I forgot to mention, in the art teacher. A lot of those specialist teachers that really get to know all of the kids over the years is really helpful. And they really helped me focus on the strengths. So I encourage you all to sort of be able to reach out and try to do this in your own communities. And so the next slide, I think, Minnie, we're going to take in a couple minutes, we're going to just stop and have you guys type in because I know that you're working in isolation, and sometimes it's hard after the webinar. You're going to have to go back to what you're doing. So we're hoping we can take a few minutes to sort of brainstorm from all of you across the country, to have you weigh in. And if you type into the chat window now, we'll add to the possible strengths and assets that you see in your community, and maybe looking at what other people see as strengths in your community may help some of us think outside of our boxes. So we'll wait a minute to see what gets up on the box, and Minnie will let us know when we're ready to talk more.
Okay, so we got a couple of responses coming in now. This is Minnie. Thanks, Pam. So someone said churches, hospitals, governments. There's universities. A lot of people who are moving to their community to retire and looking for connections. People who care about children. Some folks have those organizations in their communities that serve youth. Civic organizations, a college campus, well-respected community elders, other nonprofit organizations. One individual said assets are the clinic, public safety building, a boys and girls club, youth centers, school. Generational community members who know the community, I think that's a great asset to use. And again, we have another folks who are talking about schools, community centers, the city council, a local wine industry, interesting, and I think, yeah, assets of free trading from nonprofits, and more responses on community centers. So these are great assets and strengths within your communities, I think, for people to kind of brainstorm about, thinking about who is in your community. And you can probably come back to these assets maybe down the line in the Q&A. I'll give it back to you, Pam.
Thanks, Minnie. I think I think it's great to start that brainstorm right now, because I do find that being able to really make a list of those and be able to ask yourself, how am I going to reach out to these people or these businesses? And I always tell people that my job is to build relationships with, just like our mentoring relationships are about relationships. My job is to build all of those different relationships with all the adults in the community, and that sort of approach has really helped me. So of course, the second challenge is the recruitment challenge, and so we'll talk a little bit about making good matches and letting them tell their story, and how that has helped me be able to recruit more mentors. One strategy that has worked in our small town is to ask the mentors, tell us your story, tell us why you mentor, because they are the best people to promote the program and recruit new mentors. I mean, when I heard someone say they're looking for ways to get more men to mentor, or just recruitment in general, I find that usually a direct ask from a mentor works the best. And so I've really tried to have mentors be able to tell their stories. And I've made multiples of these posters here that you can see of I am a mentor poster with lots of different quotes from different mentors. And they're all so different. It's really nice for people that see those posters to be like, oh, you can mentor, that you can mentor for a variety of reasons, like having fun, or some people mentor because they want to give back to their community. Some people mentor because they want to spend time with a younger person and get to know how the world is today. So by asking those different questions and thinking, oh, I never thought that would be a motivation to mentor, making a poster out of it, it might speak differently to a different community member. And you could see, if you want to see more samples, you could go to our website and look at those later. The other thing that I would recommend is that some of you know this, that Canva, you can go to canva.com and make your posters for free. It's a really easy website to use. So that would be another recruitment strategy I would use. So now the other piece of that is that mentees also helped me promote mentoring. Because as our culture of mentoring has grown, the thing that happened was the more people that have a mentor and the mentoring became more visible, the more we had kids asking for mentors. And it's hard for people sometimes to say, oh, I'm going to mentor, I'm going to take that plunge. But if they see a picture of a little self-portrait of this little girl that you see here, and say that they want to mentor because they see how much fun their friends are having, and that describe themselves as brave and smart and adventurous, and what they like to do, someone might see that and be like, oh, I could hang out with her. So I've really tried to use mentees to promote the program, because then it makes it like kind of nice to have a mentor. Everybody wants one. And then I use these quotes and pictures to make a poster. They're linked to our website. I'll even send a screenshot to someone of a kid's self-portrait and say, hey, I think you might really like this person. The template is included. I just basically have the kids do a self-portrait, scan it, and I have asks the same questions, like, what do you like to do? How would a friend describe you? That kind of stuff. But these self-referral forms have really helped do a lot of recruitment, actually, of mentors, because they can't say no to these cute kids. And then the last slide that I have here is that I really think, as I said earlier, mentees are great at showing our community members that mentoring is rewarding, fun, and important. I think that community members see that mentoring is making a difference for kids. It means and it also means a lot to the mentors when they hear that, like this girl Janessa is saying, my mentor is the best mentor. She's always there for me. Janessa's in high school now, and for her mentor, who's been with her since she was in 6th grade, to get that picture, I know meant a lot to the mentor, because kids are not always openly appreciative, because they just sort of go about their days, and they're a great way for mentors to feel appreciated, but other people saw the pictures too, and they realized, wow, these mentors are really important to these kids. And I think that to wrap it up, I think that our mentoring program has become valued in our community because of all these connections that people are making. It touches so many lives, and honestly, mentoring connects people that would normally never know each other. And mentoring friendships have made our community stronger. And it brings out one of the biggest strengths of our whole community, and that is our small size. And yeah, so, if you have questions, I don't know if we're doing questions at the end or now. I think we'll go on to the next person.
Yes, thank you, Pam. That was great, and good learning about your program and all the wonderful suggestions you have for our audience. So I will turn it over on our next slide to Allyson Horne with teammates.
Hi, everyone. I hope that you can hear me okay. It's a joy to be part of this call today, and I so appreciated what Pam had to say about her program, because there are a lot of similarities in what we do as an organization with teammates, and also what the great work that you're doing as well. So I loved hearing some of the same things, especially when it comes to recognizing that the more we can create a culture of mentoring, the more mentoring that will happen for students across the nation, across the world. So my background, I started as a teammates mentor in 1999. And sometimes when I meet with my mentee, I remind her that was an actual year because it was a long time ago. But I've been in the field of mentoring for a while, and I absolutely love that I get to help design resources and match support for our 9,000 plus mentors. So a little about Teammates. Teammates is a school-based mentoring program. We were founded in 1991 by Coach Tom Osborne and his wife, Nancy. We are strictly school-based. Mentors and mentees meet weekly, one-to-one, in the school setting, often during lunch or study hall timeframes. Teammates is unique in the sense that our matches are encouraged to be forever friends. A long-term commitment is expected of our mentors. So we ask for a minimum of 3 years with the intention of continuing with that same mentee through high school graduation and beyond with our post-secondary opportunities. We are also strength-based, meaning we focus on what is right, what is good. We focus on potential, and we do not assess at-risk factors. Most students in our program self-nominate, and that culture of mentoring has proven very effective. My own personal story as a teammate's parent started in Hebron, Nebraska. That's a community of about 1,500 people. My daughter, Lauren, was matched with her mentor, Ellie, when Lauren was in 5th grade. And Lauren's mentor, Ellie, continues to be that forever friend. Lauren is now 22. And Ellie is 90, and they are still connected. Lauren has recently become a mentor herself to a 3rd grade student in an Omaha school. And when Lauren was in school, one of the things that I noticed about Ellie's connection to the school. Ellie's kids and grandkids in a rural community, sometimes we have where families may move away. Ellie's kids and grandkids had moved away from our school district. So when Ellie began mentoring Lauren, it was a reconnect for Ellie through this meeting weekly at the school and a way for her to be re-engaged in the community. So in that personal story, for me as a teenage parent, I'm able to see how that long-term friendship building really makes a difference and really builds on the culture of mentoring. So a little more about teammates. We have teammates chapters in communities with populations over 450,000, and we have teammates chapters in communities with less than 600 people. The majority of our chapters are in rural Nebraska, outside Lincoln and Omaha, and a local chapter has a local board and a local coordinator. So each community has the opportunity to create their own individual culture of mentoring. Many of our mentors are longtime residents of the community that they live in, and they often want to give back, want to make a difference, and want to support the future. One of our common challenges, as I'm sure most of you have as well, is match support. So when we take a look at these numbers and we think about starting with 22 matches, our expansion in Nebraska and Iowa, and now in 5 states, when we're thinking about that, we know that the common challenge is match support, how we can help mentors to continue to show up for their mentee week after week, year after year. So the resources that are available are different in each community. And I love what Pam said about, recognizing and building on strengths and assets. So some of our cities and communities have public health. Some communities don't have a local hospital. So supporting the mentor-mentee match is important with our matches, regardless of the location. And our local chapter support and online resources can help assist in that process. So one of the things that we have found is keeping track and being able to tell our story, making sure that we have data that backs up what we're doing and showing that the impact of a mentor. But we also want to be sure that we're able to tell the stories that go with those data points. So within Teammates, we do keep track of grades, attendance, and behavior for our students program-wide. Although our mentors are not tutors, we often see the bonus effects of relationship building. We utilized Gallup's student poll in 2011 as a measurement of hope and engagement and found that if a student is simply looking forward to seeing their mentor, they are more likely to be more hopeful. So one of the things that I often share with mentors in new mentor training is how simple it is to have an impact. The simplest of just showing up. The activity doesn't have to be elaborate, but just the impact of a student looking forward to seeing you. Teammates has gathered data for many years showing our improvement in grades, attendance, and behavior, but that's not because our mentors are great at 5th grade math. We know it's because they're building on student engagement by being that consistent, safe adult friend. They're there to celebrate their mentee's strengths. They remind a student that they are important, that they matter, that their opinion matters. They remind a student of their value. Building on strengths leads to higher levels of engagement and hope, and Gallup has been studying that for many years. But that ultimately leads to improved well-being and success. Gallup research has shown that, again, that student who is simply looking forward to seeing their mentor, they may have this higher sense of hope, engagement, and well-being. So when I first learned about this piece of research, it made a lot of sense because our mentors were seeing, or our mentees were seeing improvement in grades, attendance, and behavior, academic achievements. But we knew it wasn't because our mentors were focusing on that. So we see that as a bonus of building on hope and building on engagement. Just simply being someone that your mentee looks forward to has an impact on hope. And we all know that high hope kids do amazing things, both in and out of the classroom. Another measurement that we often take a look at as an organization, we take a look at our, we survey our mentors and we survey our mentees, and we also survey our program coordinators. So this research from our 2018 mentee survey shows a little bit about what we're trying to measure when it comes to things outside of grades, attendance, and behavior. We survey our 9,000 plus mentors and mentees annually with a survey that asks questions about the quality of their relationship, levels of support on the local level, and additional resources that mentors might need. Mentor and mentee surveys have been done over the last 15 years, and using this data for quality control and perspective of the impact helps when we think beyond grades, attendance, and behavior. So questions like, my mentor helps me feel excited about my future, or my mentor talks to me about my strengths or what I do well, and when I'm with my mentor, I feel important. When we ask students those questions, 2018's research shows that 92% of our mentees have a higher sense of hope, 90% are building on strength-based conversations with their mentee, and 94% believe that they feel important or a sense of value when they are with their mentor. So the key piece in my role and what I hope to share with you today is the importance of match support, regardless of where the mentor-mentee may live or reside or the community that they're in, regardless of the age, season, or stage that the mentee might be in, and regardless of where the match is in their developmental relationship. We know that match support is really important, and that local chapter support is key. Mentors take the role of being a mentee's person. They I think Pam spoke to this really well about building relationships. Mentors expect the same kind of thing. Who is their person? Who are they able to connect with? How will I be supported as a mentor? In our new mentor training, we incorporate a number of activities that honor not just policy and procedure of teammates, but one, how to build a relationship, two, how to learn about participants so that we can make the best initial match. And then the third part of our activities is used for screening. Activity participation is really important when we're thinking about not just screening for whether or not they would be the right fit for our program, but will they be able to be committed? Do they understand that we are strength-based, that we're focused on what's right? And then the fourth component to new mentor training is how we build confidence or how we practice mentoring. One of my favorite training experiences was at the end of training, I had a gentleman raise his hand and said, okay, when are we going to practice? And I thought it was really interesting that I hadn't planned anything in training for a practice or a role play. And so one of the things that we will really, really strive to do as we continue to build on our training resources is to think about all of the different ways that we can help mentors to practice and build their own confidence. Renewal trainings are really important too, and encouraging those not just to be a review of policy and procedure, but also a check-in. So the joys and challenges, new learning opportunities, finding resources locally. So helping those local chapters think about who is in their community that could help them build a training so that training isn't just policy and procedure. Maybe it's around a public health topic. Maybe it's around growth mindset. Maybe it's your guidance counselor, helping mentors understand all of the different resources that mentees may need at that season and stage of life. And then, of course, it's really important when we think about where our mentees and mentors are on building on their own strengths. So I know we have a question about Gallup's student poll, and I'll be sure to link that resource before we finish up today. But Gallup Strengths is a great opportunity where our mentors and mentees have the opportunity to learn their strengths, and they build on strength-based conversation using those resources. We offer that opportunity to chapters for them to participate in and create their own strength-based mentoring plan. And then we also provide monthly match support from our central office. And we send out a monthly match support email to all actively matched mentors from our office around the 15th of the month. Each of those emails includes a diverse topic and links. We try to include research, a conversation starter, a policy reminder, and a link to our online webinar academies. Our Mentor Academy webinars are featured monthly, and they're on a variety of topics gathered from mentor surveys, whether it's understanding poverty, growth mindset, grief and loss, youth mental health, vaping, the concept of purpose. Those are naming just a few. What we wanted to do is provide mentors an opportunity wherever they live to be able to log on and listen in and decide how they might be able to utilize that resource in their mentoring relationship. If you're mentoring a third grader, you probably won't be as interested in a high school-based mentor webinar. But if you are mentoring a third grader or a 10th grader, you might be interested in a webinar on growth mindset. We want to be able to offer those in addition to the local chapter support. And then we have our mentor resource library. Our mentor resource library is really built on toolkits. So we've designed toolkits to gather resources for mentors, and mentors can access these when and where they may need them during their journey. And I've listed in the next slide where you can go to that link to take a look. But essentially, listening to the needs of our mentors, regardless of their location and resources, is really important to us. We want to partner with local agencies and organizations so that we're able to share what other great organizations are teaching and training to. I know as an organization, we can't be the experts on understanding poverty. So how can we partner with a local chapter in a local community so that they're able to get the resources there? And then in this slide, this is just a screenshot of what our mentor resource library looks like. We've been really happy with our response from our mentors. We have about 20 different toolkits, and honestly, it's very simple. I utilize Dropbox to gather resources. So in the next slide, you'll see what our purpose toolkit looks like. And what I've done is this actually came from a mentor webinar on the concept of purpose. And I just gathered the information and put the links in directly. Utilizing the results from our annual mentor survey, we found that mentors wanted to know what resources and training would be helpful. They shared with us, and then we decided as a match support team to create this online resource library. Because each of our 9,000 mentors has different needs. We know that our mentors are unique, our mentees are unique, and they're in a variety of communities. So we strive to honor any resource they might need at any time during their long-term relationship. A new match might be looking for a mentoring activity idea, and we have a toolkit, whereas an established match might be looking for resources to support a high school mentee, and we have a toolkit on that as well. Although every match may not need every toolkit, we want to be able to offer resources for matches in small rural communities or large communities. Mentor Academy webinar recordings are also housed here in the Mentor Resource Library, and we work towards the intention. If we have a webinar, we have a toolkit resource to support further learning. If we have a toolkit, we offer a webinar to enhance the resources. We keep these resources very basic, very simple. Mentors have a wide range of technological comfort, kind of like me, and fancy or overwhelming resources have not been effective if we want these to be user-friendly. So keeping our resources through a simple Dropbox makes it very easy to add and make changes, as well as assures mentors they can click on links to find other resources. And the initial feedback we've received from mentors is an appreciation for these. They like the learning. They feel like they're applying this research and this learning beyond the mentoring relationship in their community, their work, their families. And like I said, this example is from our toolkit on the concept of purpose, and that was born from a mentor webinar on this topic.
Great resources, Allyson. We really appreciate you sharing your background with teammates, and especially being a mentor yourself and passing that along. So we can go to the next slide. We'll actually just do this question in the chat box, and we'll share out a few comments from this at the end towards the Q&A part. So how do you best support mentor-mentee matches in your rural community or program? So just take a few minutes and share your responses in the chat box. We'll use just about a minute. And again, we'll share out at the end. Many will share out during the Q&A process. All right, we're going to go ahead and go to our third and final panelist today, introducing Ms. Kara Johnson with the Heart of Oregon Corps.
Hi, I'm Tara Johnson. I'm the program director for the Heart of Oregon Core YouthBuild program. I've been with the YouthBuild program for 9 years, 2 years as a case manager and mentoring coordinator, and 7 years now as the program director. Next slide, please. So Heart of Oregon Core is a nonprofit organization located in Central Oregon that engages opportunity youth ages 16 to 24 years old. Every year, we provide job skills training, education, and leadership development to over 300 local young people who face major barriers to success. We're empowering a generation of young people to believe in themselves and achieve self-sufficiency through our 6 programs. Heart of Oregon Core's mission is to inspire and empower positive change in the lives of young people through jobs, education, and stewardship. In the YouthBuild program, students alternate between 2 days of job skills training on an affordable home construction site and 3 days of education, leadership, and career development at our school location or in their local communities that the youth reside in. The classroom work is designed to result in the completion of a GED and frequently in a high school diploma. The construction training results in a pre-apprenticeship certificate and significant hands-on experience building affordable residential housing. The YouthBuild mentoring model combines both group and one-to-one mentoring. It is combined within the learning process of the program. The first 3 months of the program, the young person is participating in group mentoring activities with our mentors. These activities consist of service projects, fun social events, and recreational activities. The young person is then matched one-on-one where the mentors and mentees meet during the program at scheduled times and also outside of program as well. Their relationship is monitored for a total of 12 months by our mentoring coordinator. All of our young people receive mentoring with our group mentoring model, but youth who are 16 to 17 years old are the main focus on being matched for one-to-one mentoring because we're currently a sub-grantee through YouthBuild USA, who receives funding through OJJDP for our mentoring component for our program. However, if there's an organic mentor-mentee relationship that is building between a mentor and a youth 18 and older, they will be matched as well. Next slide, please. So, when mentoring youth development supports are not available to young people in rural areas, youth who are considered at risk fall into these demographics. These are the youth that we're working with. 90% of our youth are out of school. 28% have not attended school in over 2 years. 45% have a substance use or abuse issue. 75% live below the poverty line. 36% have been in foster care. 25% admit to being in a gang. And 35% have a criminal record. Next slide, please. However, when programs like Heart of Oregon YouthBuild are available to young people, the youth are flipping the script. They're receiving wraparound supports, including mentoring, and we have seen substantial gains for our young people. Attendance in our program has gone up to 85%. 75% of our youth complete their diploma or GED, but graduation rates in the state of Oregon are still one of the lowest, coming in at number 49. 65% attend some higher education. 65% get a job within 3 months of graduation. Less than 15% reoffend after being in the program. The national average for recidivism for 16 to 24-year-olds is over 50%. And since 2009, young people in our program have constructed over 25 homes, helping 25 local families get back on their feet through purchasing, leasing, and renting affordable housing. Next slide, please. We do have our challenges, however. Central Oregon, on this map, you can see, is located, covers over 7,833 square miles. Our program serves 3 separate counties, so rural remote Oregon transportation has been challenging for us. Our school is located in Sisters, Oregon, and our construction sites are located 30 minutes away in Primeville, an hour away in Madras, and then about 15 minutes away from Sisters. So travel time between the school location and work sites can take anywhere from 15 minutes to over an hour. Our mentees travel to a program from all 3 counties. We have youth on a Warm Springs reservation who catch a bus at 6 a.m. and do not arrive to program until 7:45. During their commute, they are riding 3 separate buses. Transportation for most of these young people coming from each county takes about an hour and 15 minutes. Some youth do not get home in the evenings until about 7 o'clock at night, leaving them enough time to eat dinner, do some homework, go to bed, and then they have to start their day all over again. We also have a challenge with volunteer recruitment, but how are we meeting these challenges? We have worked closely with one of the school districts, Jefferson County 509J, to provide the transportation for those youth up in Warm Springs. The public transportation, unfortunately, does not have any early routes, so the school district stepped up to support the success of these youth coming to program each day. They will provide a bus or a vehicle to pick up these youth, even when there's no school or in the district, or because we have year-round programming, they provide it during spring break. They provide the transportation throughout the entire summer as well. However, it does take very detailed partnership development and getting to know the right people in the district, and you have to have extremely good communication with the transportation office. When we first moved out to our sister's location, we were providing our own transportation in our vans to pick the young people up from the bus stop. We started talking to the organization that provides the public transportation, and we were able to establish a new bus stop at our school location, right out our front doors, and we were able to negotiate bus pass rates for our youth. Before we negotiated the bus pass rates, we were paying around $10,000 to $12,000 per year on passes for only about 12 youth. We were able to cut that expense nearly in half, and now we're able to provide a bus pass to every single young person in our program. We've also had an increase in mentors who are wanting to work with their young people on the construction site. So in order for them to have more one-on-one time with a young person, the mentors will meet with the young people in the mornings or early afternoon to work with the youth right there on that construction site, like that's pictured in the slide like that. When working on the construction sites, mentors have an opportunity to teach youth and to support their learning by creating a hands-on learning environment for the youth. Next slide, please. We know that recruitment can be difficult in our small communities, and in our community, it really relies on word of mouth and personal interaction. The more people who know about your program, the easier it is to recruit, obviously, but it's taking the time to engage and talk with potential mentors takes time and lots of planning. In the last 3 years, we've focused our mentor recruitment on getting mentors who have recently retired from the construction trade. We have established a partnership with Sisters Habitat for Humanity, where we build one home per year with our youth for them. And then their volunteers have also become mentors to our youth and work side by side on the construction sites. We've also created a construction handbook for our mentors who volunteer on construction to help guide them through the mentoring process and a little bit about youth development as well. We attend lots and lots of chamber events. We attend 3 chamber events every month that are in different communities, but we'll bring the students to these events with us. We work with the students on their elevator speech about our program, and this also helps them network on job placements right there in their own communities. We also talk about the projects that we're doing in their community as well. And we'll announce at the chamber events any upcoming service projects that we are going to be working on in their community, and that we're always looking for mentors for our youth. Rotary and Kiwanis and VFW meetings are also a great place to recruit mentors as well. Call your local Rotary, call your local Kiwanis, and call your local VFW members. First, it's easier if you can find someone who can bring you into the meeting to introduce your program. These groups of folks are more willing to listen to your story when it's a familiar face who's presenting you to talk. Also, inviting these groups out to a service project or a community project with youth is also an effective recruitment tool. We also use public radio. Our program has been asked to speak about who we are on the radio. Great opportunity for leadership development for the youth to speak about the program and how it affects their lives. Then during the talk show, we will announce that we're always looking for mentors with our program and to contact us. If your town has a public radio show, this is a great opportunity to present at. Next slide, please. Funding. Funding is always an issue for all of our programs, so we've been able to get a little bit creative with our funding. We try to find businesses that will donate or significantly reduce our fees for our activities. We also try to find activities that are free, like nature hikes, service projects, and we create partnerships with other nonprofits who can help us as well. We were able to go snowshoeing for free. All equipment and the tour guide was provided by Discover Your Forest. And if you have youth who do not have snow pants, jackets, gloves, or hats, they have several items that they are able to loan out to the young people. When onboarding our mentors, we go through extensive boundary training with them. One of the boundaries that we have with our mentors that we set is not being their personal bank account for our youth. Plus, as a program, our current funding does not allow us to spend money on food and one-to-one activities. But we had one creative mentor, Greg, who was able to come up with an idea to fund his one-on-one activities with his mentees. In Oregon, the aluminum can deposit is 10 cents per can. And so Greg started to ask his friends at church and within his own social networks to start saving cans for him to donate to his mentee mentor activities with the young people that he's matched with. When you're in small rural areas, doing projects in the community that help out and give back creates meaningful relationships with mentees and mentors as well. These service projects are also a great opportunity for the Kiwanis, Rotary, and VFW to come out and participate and meet the youth in your program. Service projects act as great group mentoring activities that are free. I find that when you get people involved and working for the better of the community, they're more willing to volunteer as a mentor with your program because they see the difference you're making in giving back. Also, these organizations, once involved with your program, may start donating through their organizational fundraising as well.
Well, thank you so much, Kurt. That was so wonderful to learn about your program and all of the wonderful information that you have to share out there. And thanks to all of our panelists today. But right now, we're going to move into our question and answer time of the webinar. And so if you would, please put in your questions in the chat box, and Minnie will figure out which ones we can do at a high level, and time to go. So Minnie, I'll turn it over to you.
Yep, thank you. And thank you all, the panelists, for presenting. Before I get started with the Q&A, actually had some great responses to the question of how do you best support mentee mentor matches. So I'll just read out some of those responses I got. So just some ways that we make sure that the match is going well. Some folks kind of have those really in-person check-ins with the mentor and mentee, in-person contact, and including also phone calls, emails regularly on a consistent basis. There are kind of set up monthly mentor and mentee activities. There are coffee dates that are being set up. Folks kind of have, like I said, monthly updates and events. Let me see what else we got. Monthly calls to the mentee family and monthly emails to mentors, weekly email reminders. And I think these are some great resources that folks are doing. So I'll get started to the Q&A portion. I think let me just pull up the questions here. Some of them are coming in right now. I think there was one question or comment about mentoring and commute time, and I know Kara, you mentioned how the bus kind of takes an hour and a half for your youth to get to the sites. I think that's one challenge some folks are still facing in terms of it takes a lot of time for people to get to places. So how do you kind of ensure that the mentors kind of are able to make that commitment when travel takes up a lot of the time?
It definitely has been challenging for sure for our mentors and our young people. I think in our area in Central Oregon, people just get used to that commute. I hate to say it, but 30 minutes from town to town is the norm around here, and people do it. And you can find those resilient people who will do it. The biggest challenges that we still have and we're still trying to solve is finding mentors within the communities of like our Warm Springs Reservation. And that we've been really hitting the recruitment hard in that community solidly. And and having those mentor-mentee activities actually happening right there in their community, so the mentor doesn't have to travel that far, and the youth can stay there for a Saturday or Sunday and have it right there.
Great, thank you, Kara. And feel free, other panelists, Allyson, Pam, anyone can also kind of chime in if anyone has any other comments.
This is Pam. I think one thing that I didn't think about when I first started doing this job was the location of because in the community program anyhow, when I'm matching a mentor with a mentee, I now really think about what end of the two towns, because we're serving two towns, what end they are, because we have all these dirt roads with big ruts in them and tons of snow and all of these navigational things. And so when I'm finding the right match, one of the considerations I make is this personality, and living closer to this end of town would be nice. So the mentors don't have to drive as far, because then it's easier to say, hey, let's just get together for an hour. It's not a big deal to go and get them if you're 10 minutes away as opposed to 35 minutes away.
Great, thank you. We had a few other questions. One was kind of addressing kind of funding opportunities. I know, Kara, you also just mentioned some of these ideas, but kind of does any other panelists kind of speak on any kind of funding ideas or opportunities in their rural community?
Hi, this is Kara again. So one of the things that I did forget to talk about is some of your cities that you're working with your youth in, like individual towns, may have grant applications just for their town that will support these things. We write grants for the City of Sisters, and we also write them for the City of Prineville to support the mentoring activities. And most of those grant funding, if you write about it in the grant, it becomes unrestricted funds, so you can use it for those activities, for the one-to-one matches or the group activities when you're taking the group out. So check into your cities as well for those funding opportunities.
This is Pam chiming in again. I also think one of the strengths of a rural community is starting to ask people, hey, let's support our youth. And you could do that by becoming, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, like you want to be a mentor, or you could make a donation to our program. I think that there's, in our rural community anyhow, there's socioeconomic diversity. So you have a lot of people that are here who, have money and can easily give anywhere from $25 donations to $1,000 donations, and all of those really add up. And we get about $5,000, between $5,000 and $7,000 from asking people to do donations on a yearly basis.
Great, thank you. We have a question that's more related, I think, to the folks running school-based mentoring program. One individual had a question about having a challenge of getting buy-in from the schools and having the time during school to facilitate programming. They say that after school just doesn't work in their community. So if you have any advice for folks if they are having trouble making that connection with schools?
This is Allyson, and I would say from the teammates' perspective, really being able to show the impact in a lot of different ways. I think, of course, some data points are good, but really that engagement of community members. I think school districts love when community members know the great things that are happening at school. And so ways that you can help to recruit mentors might also be helping with recruiting the good things that are happening at the school and supporting the school district. I know that building a relationship on each of the local levels is really key. So thinking about a board, who is on that board, who can help to support the program in a lot of different ways, but then who also might be able to share about their own experience being a mentor, whether that's in a nearby community or in a community that's new to the concept of school-based mentoring.
And this is Pam, and I'll reiterate what Allyson said in that, I'm in a school, And I think that the one thing that our school has always known, but every single year it becomes more and more apparent to them and the board, the more our culture grows, is that there are that many, we have 42 community members that are involved and 30 high school kids that are involved in our mentoring program. But all of those community members who may or may not have children, most of them don't, support the school. They support the school budget that they have to vote on every year. They talk about the great things that are happening at the school. And so the school really wins. So I'm reiterating what Allyson already said. But the other thing I will say is, and I think Kara mentioned this earlier, was that you have to know who the right people are to talk to. And I think in schools, there's always going to be people that don't get that the relationships are making a difference. They want to, they have to do math or they have to do reading or they can't miss anything. But there are always people in the school that intuitively know that these relationships are really, really important for our youth. And so those are the people that you really have to get to know those people, and you build relationships with them and you get them to buy in and for them to help promote the program for you.
Great, thank you. So we still have more questions coming in. This question is on the topic of match closure, and I think it was directed during Allison's part on, I believe you said that there was a minimum 3-year commitment from your mentors. So this person asked, isn't it dangerous to promise the mentee their mentor for the long term? 3 years or more is a long time. Mentors have to leave. So kind of how do you deal with kind of an situation where a mentee's hope might have been let down due to early match closure?
We work really hard. We work really hard to make the best match possible from the beginning. We're careful about the language that we use. We do refer to mentors as promise keepers. And so I think one of the things that is important that a mentor knows before they sign on, that it's our intention for a long-term relationship. The last thing we would want to do is to match a student with a mentor who would not show up. So we do a lot when it comes to our screening about, any kind of potential life change or maybe a possible move. The number one reason that our matches do close within teammates is student mobility, which is, a challenge in all of our communities program-wide. And one of the things that's been beneficial is that if they're moving somewhere where there is another mentoring opportunity, we want to make sure that that student is well-versed and they could ask for a mentor. How can they find out where they're moving to if they have a teammate program or if they have another mentoring opportunity, so that the student is aware that there may be another mentor in their life. But when we do closure, we really think about what is possible. Can the match stay connected in a healthy boundary way? Is it something that we talk with the parents about to keep the mentor and mentee connected? For me personally, I had my mentee moved and then moved back. So then I was able to be rematched with her. So I think we never make a promise to a student, but we go in with the expectation that this is going to be a long-term relationship building opportunity.
Thank you, Allyson. We have another individual who is asking about for those located in rural areas where there are Native American youth or tribal youth. What are your strategies are you able to connect with Native American youth through mentoring programs? And if you are in your area, what were some of those strategies you have used?
This is Kara. Yes, we have about 30% of our youth are Native American youth who come to our program. And a lot of those youth are older youth, like 18, 19, 20 years old. But what we've done for some strategies is we've advertised about our mentoring program and our YouthBuild program on the reservation. We've talked to you have to, it's those relationships that you have to connect with the people and make sure that you have those right relationships built so they can spread the word that you have your program and that you're looking for mentors and the mentees as well. It is challenging for sure because of our location. Like I said, Warm Springs is an hour away. So making it possible for them to meet on the weekends Also to taking the youth, we did a group mentoring activity where we took our mentors and mentees to the annual powwow. We also create service projects on the the Warm Springs Reservation as well. We use a liaison through one of the school districts who is also a summer employee at our organization too, and he's been amazing to be that liaison between us and tribal members as well. So it's with that one, it truly is about relationships and making sure that you have the right relationships and that you have to keep those relationships growing and nourished as well.
Thank you, Kara. We have another question. I know, Pam, you might have touched upon this during your presentation, but anyone feel free to answer. Kind of how do you celebrate mentee accomplishments? Can you talk more about kind of the events that you host to kind of celebrate these matches?
It's a very timely question. This is Pam. I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're asking, but each year we do a mentor appreciation dinner, and we're actually hosting ours next week. And this is actually mentor appreciation though. We have a mentor appreciation dinner actually, and the mentees help me cook the meal, and we invite families and the mentors to bring a guest, and we hang pictures of the mentors, the mentees saying why they love their mentors. We use that hashtag Thank Your Mentor thing and put those everywhere. And to appreciate our mentees, I think the mentors do that quite a bit. Was that the question, mentees or mentors?
It says, how do you celebrate mentee accomplishments?
Yeah, I guess that the mentee accomplishments would be really, I try to get youth to have a voice in some of the things we do. So if we're going to do a group activity, for example, I'll ask them, what do you think we should do? Or in our peer program, I have the high school kids come up with the ideas of the activities that they're going to do, or some of them are helping me write a grant for next year. So I really try to just honor youth voice as much as I can, and I also give them food.
Thank you, Pam. So I think we have time for just one more question. This kind of was a follow-up, I think, to the transportation question or just the long distance traveling. This is a question also regarding transportation. So this individual says, our program has youth who are aged 10 to 24. How do you take care of transportation when young mentees cannot take public transportation, but it takes so much time staff time to pick everyone up? So how do you kind of get mentees in these areas to meet with their mentors?
So this is Kara. So are you asking the question about the younger kids, like the 10-year-olds to like 13, 14-year-olds who have a challenge with public transportation?
Yes, I believe it's the younger mentees who cannot take public transportation.
Like I said, it's not an issue with our 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds. Public transportation is part of life, here in Central Oregon for our youth. However, maybe this might help some people. I don't know. I've had some younger 16, 17-year-olds who were very fearful of the bus. And so we really I had staff sit down with them and go through the schedule, talk to them about like where the bus is meeting, actually take them to the bus stop. That's harder for a 10-year-old. But I would say, if you could rely on parents and family members for the little ones if they could take them to these mentor-mentee activities, that might be an option as well.
This is Pam. I think, I think for the most part, if the community members mentor program people, the mentors will do a lot of the transporting. But when we're planning for this dinner next week, I'm talking to kids that are like saying, some high school kid says, "Oh, I can't go because my mom works." And I suggested she take the bus. And, we're having this conversation and someone else says, "Well, I live next door to you." And so the kids themselves started talking about what kids could carpool and trying to get other kids to be able to get to this dinner that night. And so I think encouraging the carpool thing too, or thinking about, well, who lives near you, and asking the kids if they could figure that out and maybe help coordinate, make those connections for kids that might not know who they live near.
Great, thank you so much. So I think just with respect to time, we're gonna finish up this portion, but feel free, I know there are some questions we didn't get to. I will try to relay them to the panelists, but thank you all so much, and I'll turn it back to Desiree.
Thank you all for that. To mentor scales impact by developing and supporting a national network of affiliates. We learned a little bit about them earlier, but these affiliates provide the leadership and infrastructure necessary to support the expansion of quality mentoring relationships in local communities or statewide. Additionally, we encourage you to register your program with the Mentoring Connector, which is a national database of mentoring programs. This zip code searchable database allows mentors and mentees from across the country to find your program, and it's connected to LinkedIn, NBA Cares, Mentor.gov, and so many other avenues for free program promotion. Finally, check out the OJJDP National Mentoring Resource Center website for no-cost mentoring resources to help you apply evidence-based mentoring practices to your program. The OJJDP NMRC provides evidence reviews on mentoring models and mentoring for special populations, implementation resources from training manuals to mentor guides, and other evaluation toolkits reviewed by the NMRC Research Board, a blog featuring innovations and best practices for mentoring practitioners, and the opportunity to request, again, no-cost training or technical assistance. So as a reminder, 1 week after the webinar, all attendees will receive an email with a link to the Collaborative Mentoring Webinar Series webpage, where we will post the recording, slides, and additional resources. Also, don't forget, we do want your feedback. At the end of today's webinar, please answer the short survey and help us make this series even better. Be sure to visit the CMWS page on the Mentor website for an archive of all past webinars and information about upcoming webinars. So thanks to everyone for joining us today. Please join us next month on April 18th for our next webinar on family engagement. There will also be 2 additional webinars Mentor will be hosting next month: the General Mentoring Connector demo on April 16th, and as April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, there will also be a webinar on supporting safe and healthy children and families through partnerships on April 30th. In June, the CMWS will also be hosting a webinar focused on mentoring in the opioid crisis, an issue we know that has been affecting many rural communities around the country. Stay tuned for more. And thank you all.